Hi, welcome back to the AFB podcast. I am your host, Emily Sizemore. I'm here with Jenna Ducker, a graduate from the University of North Carolina, and Sierra Loray, a farmer from North Carolina. So, Sierra, how has the weather been?
It's been pretty good. The average temperature is 68 to 70 degrees, which is fairly decent for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it grows a lot of crops, and that's about the median temperature that a lot of the crops need.
Is that like the same during midsummer, or does it get a lot hotter?
No, in midsummer it usually gets up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's a lot hotter.
I'm assuming that some crops can't grow in that much of a, it's hard, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
That much of a heat.
Like the heat difference, yeah.
Heat
difference.
A bunch of crops can die because they get too hot, or if they don't get enough water to them, then, they get dehydrated. So, it's not as simple as just, I'm going to plant these crops and hope that they grow through all this really hot weather. You got to actually maintain giving them water every day and stuff.
There's factors that go into it, such as like the climate and the topography and the soil. You have to keep those tended really well to ensure that your crops are going to grow right.
I've heard that it rains a lot in the North Carolina, Virginia region, like the Lime. Do you have to do cover cropping?
Yes. Whenever it comes to crops, I have to make sure that that too much water doesn't come to them, so they don't kind of drown, as you could say. So I have to make sure that if there's too much water going to my crops, then I need to put something to cover it, or I need to do other things.
Do you use any irrigation techniques?
Yes.
What type do you use? There's drip line, and there's the central pivot, and there's just the open ditch. Which one do you use?
Open ditch.
Okay, so there's things that come along with that, such as erosion and just things, and the water evaporates when it gets warm in the midsummer. So, that can affect the crops and how they grow and the land and everything.
Yeah.
I've heard that two major crops in the region that you're from are peanuts and watermelon. Do you prefer growing those, or?
When it comes to me, I like watermelon because, who doesn't like watermelon? It tastes real good. It's sweet. It's good for any time of the year. It might be harder to grow it in some parts of the year, but nobody's ever going to be like, oh, it's winter, I can't eat watermelon.
Yeah.
Everybody's always in the mood for it, so that's kind of my favorite.
Can you go into detail on how you raise it?
In the soil, you have to go 4 inches deep. It has to be 60 to 65 degrees, and it takes about 70 to 90 days for each of the watermelon to fully mature.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not that hard, but it just takes a little bit of time.
So back on the idea of livestock, what is there one large body of livestock that you raise? Is there
hogs?
North Carolina is also the 4th state in the nation to raise broilers, so those are also a big thing there.
How many broilers do you have?
On my farm, I have about 100.
100? That is a lot of tending.
Yes, it takes a lot of time to take care of them and make sure I get all their eggs and stuff, but it's worth it.
How do you raise them? And how do you make sure that they're doing okay and that they're in check?
I need to make sure that I have room for them for sure. I need to make sure I have the right bedding. I need to keep their house warm, because if not, then they could die from getting too cold. I need to regulate the temperature of their house, of course, and provide water to make sure they don't dehydrate, and monitor their feeding, because if they eat too less, they could die, and if they eat too more, it's just not good for their health.
She said that, they can die of hypothermia or things that make them cold, but they can also die of things such as dehydration or getting too hot actually. So she really has to keep the broilers, up in shape and keep them hydrated and safe.
Do they free roam, or do you keep them all in a coop?
I mean, I do both. So let's say that the temperature is okay outside and I know that it won't hurt them. I'll let them go out in a fenced-in area so they can, who wants to sit inside all the time?
Yeah.
But if it's not safe for them to be outside, then I'll put them back in their coop and let them stay there for a while.
We also have to watch out for predators such as coyotes because, they can harm them because it happens to everyone at least once if you raise chickens or broilers. But, you just have to keep them safe in that house.
Can you guys give me a little insight on the land in that region?
Well, in the western part, it's really hilly because of the Appalachian Mountains. But, on the eastern part, where there's beaches and things like that, it tends to be more flat.
Oh. Well, thank you guys for coming to my podcast and talking to me about the agriculture in your region. So this has been the AFB podcast. Thank you, and tune in next time.